We know it to be the best rivalry in college basketball and college athletics. I'd argue it's up there in the whole world of sports as well. Tomorrow, we finally get to see the first version of this season with the meeting between the Duke Blue Devils and the North Carolina Tar Heels. It's going to be a classic.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So great to have you here with us today on Friday, January 31st, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics, and we talk, of course, a whole lot about Duke men's basketball as they prepare for the North Carolina game tomorrow. What a rivalry in sports it is, and we get to see it play out once more from inside Cameron Indoor Stadium tomorrow. We'll preview the game, look at some of the classic games from over the years, and so much more with our good pal Kevin Connelly, who's the site expert from Ball Durham. Excited to bring him back onto the program here today. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Of course, you can watch the show each and every day on YouTube as we break down everything going on in the world of Duke. Duke and UNC tomorrow. It's going to be amazing. And Kevin Connelly's here with us now. Like we say often, this game, you don't have to ramp it up. You don't have to hype it up. It always speaks for itself, Kevin, and we get to finally see it play out tomorrow night.
No, we certainly do, and it's always fun when these two teams meet. I guess you can say a lot on the line for each team in two different facets, right? Duke, a home game against your rival in North Carolina, but you're trying to close out a perfect ACC regular season. You're trying to close in on the number one seed in the ACC tournament and the number one seed in the NCAA tournament. For North Carolina, I'm going to be frank here, and I know the name holds weight in perhaps getting in. This team is going to have a hard time trying to get into the NCAA tournament without at least one victory over Duke.
Yeah.
And obviously a road win goes a whole heck of a lot more than a home win, even though it's still quad one. It'll be one of those quad 1A type wins if you're able to win on the road against Duke. So this is the game of the season for North Carolina specifically.
Yeah, what a win it'd be to get it on the road, to your point. Last year, North Carolina won both the meetings, and John Shire's first season, he won both of those contests. I'm thinking about last year's game inside Cameron, and it's Cormac Ryan, who we're always going to remember to have a game like that. It's just some of the strangest and oddest players from time to time who make the biggest impact in these type games. And for the Tar Heels last year, it certainly was Cormac Ryan. It remains to be seen who it'll be this year. A new month also starts for the Blue Devils here, as this game will be played tomorrow on February 1st. But when you're looking at where this Duke team has been to start 2025, haven't lost a game yet. They're riding this 14-game winning streak. They're 10-0 in ACC play for the first time since 2007, 2008. And Cooper Flagg's numbers in the month of January alone are otherworldly, Kev.
No, I mean, I don't know where to start or where to stop with him. It's kind of special. And when you talk about this Duke team, the first guy you really talk about is Cooper Flagg. Geez, JJ, you're going to have to help me out here. I mean, what more can you say?
Yeah, it's difficult with to add anything else other than spectacular with what he's been doing. 7 January games, 25.4 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 4.6 assists. That's like a stat line that more closely resembles one of the superstars in the NBA, not something you see frequently in college hoops.
And especially because he's at the top of everybody's scouting report, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, teams probably know they can't stop him entering a game. You can hope to slow him down, but nobody's really able even to do that. And you look at a game on Monday against NC State, Duke didn't play well. Tyrese Proctor wasn't good. Common Malawach wasn't good. Sion James had a decent game. Connelly had a decent game. And for a while there, and I said this, I thought Kevin Keith kind of bailed Duke out at one point. Cooper Flagg was doing everything. And he was gassed when one of those possessions when Duke was in a zone in the second half. I mean, he's got his hands on his head.
I recall that, yeah.
He's trying to catch his breath. And then Kevin Keats called a timeout where I thought, try to go after this guy because you know he's winded and he's gassed. And He kind of gave him a lifeline to catch his breath. But it's crazy. And in relation to this game tomorrow night against North Carolina, John Shire has said he doesn't really want to put Cooper Flagg at the 5.
Yeah.
Just not to mess with his mojo and everything that he's got going on. Malik Brown, I think a lot of people think he is going to play, especially after John Shire's comments yesterday. There's certainly hope that he can play, but you don't know how good he's going to be, right? Coming off of nearly a 2.5-week, 3-week knee sprain, I wouldn't necessarily expect him to go out there and play a lot of minutes. And then if Common gets in foul trouble, who knows? But can be the matchup nightmare. We all talk about how North Carolina does not have a lot of good bigs. You think Duke can really feast on the inside, whether it is Mason Gillis playing some 5 or Malawach or even Brown. But look at Cooper Flagg, he's playing that 4 position. It's just as big of a mismatch for this Duke team in their favor. And yeah, I know we're trying to dwindle it down on what makes him so good and how is he this good. But, I think we've kind of said everything. And the fact that he right now is far and away the lock to be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft in June, when you have guys like Ace Bailey who can put up 40 points on a given night for Rutgers, when you have guys like Dylan Harper, who are a do-it-all type guard for Rutgers when he's on the court, it just speaks to his current talent and what people think he's going to continue to grow and be in the future.
It's going to be a big game tomorrow from inside Cameron Indoor. North Carolina is going to have to do every single thing possible that they can to slow down Cooper Flagg, and that is so easier said than actually being out there and able to do it itself. We'll continue to talk about this game and look at some other memorable Duke and UNC games after we take this break here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. The energy, excitement, and the connection with other fans are unmatched. I remember the thrill of seeing favorite teams clinch a playoff win live, and those are memories I'll never be able to forget. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, being there. I used Game Time Picks, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value for amazing seats, and I could preview the view from my spot before buying. The all-in pricing is a game changer as well. No surprise fees at checkout. You know exactly what to expect. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guarantee. Game Time, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, we keep moving forward. Kevin Connelly's here. It's a Duke team that's unbeaten through their first 10 games of ACC play. Now they play North Carolina. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, how big of a game this is for the Tar Heels when you simply look at things like picking up a quad 1 win on the road and trying to build their NCAA tournament resume. They're coming off a loss against Pittsburgh this past weekend. They played Boston College and had to go all the way to overtime to knock off the Eagles. A massive game here for the Tar Heels if they want to be playing in March Madness.
Yeah, I'm going to be blunt here, JJ. North Carolina has been terrible over the last 3 weeks. You go to their close win on the road against NC State, who's not that good, but I get it. It's a road game in conference against a rival. That's going to be tough. But then you really boil it down to the last 2 weeks. You lose at home to Stanford on the buzzer beater by former Blue Devil Jalen Blakes. You go on the road. You're playing Wake Forest. You have a lead late in the second half. You're unable to score really in games inside the final 3 minutes. You lose that one. Then, all right, you come home. Everyone thinks it's going to be some home cooking. You got lowly Boston College on your home court, and you're lucky to force overtime, and then you pull away and you win in overtime against them in a game you should have lost. And then the same thing. You go on the road. You're playing Pittsburgh, a chance to pick up a quad 1 victory for your resume. You play a great first half. You're leading, I think it was close to 8 towards the end of the first half. You have a lead inside of 5 minutes to go, and kind of the same thing that happened against Wake Forest happens again. Their offense is terrible inside the final 3 to 2 minutes of a basketball game, and Pitt's able to pick up a big victory for their NCAA tournament resume against North Carolina. So this is a North Carolina team that does play well in spurts, but if you get them in a close game late, it seems like nobody has the confidence to shoot the basketball.
Yeah.
And they just are unable to make a lot of clutch shots.
They've been so different all season long. We look at this one. FanDuel right now has the Blue Devils favored to win by 13.5 points. The ESPN Basketball Power Index and ESPN Analytics gives Duke a 90% chance to win this basketball game. It's going to be a much closer game because it always plays out that way. I would love to see just a dominant victory from Duke for wire to wire. We'll have to see if that plays out. But for North Carolina, early on in the year, they kept getting in double-digit holes right out of the gates. And at halftime, they're just really fighting for their life. And then they have to make a mad comeback in the second half. Sometimes they'd find a way to win that game. More times than not, they weren't losing those games. Now, to your point, their starts have been a little bit better these last few weeks. They're not finding themselves in as deep of holes early on, but then it becomes crunch time and they absolutely fall apart. That's what people have been talking about from the Duke angle as well. The margin of victory has been so impressive for Duke. They haven't had to be in so many of those tight games throughout the course of the season. A few more as of late. There have been moments where you got to clutch it out and win these games down the stretch. They did that even earlier in the season in the game against Auburn, for example. But to the same respect, in some ways, Duke really hasn't had many chances to play in these really tight and final few minute games.
Yeah, and kind of, as you said, especially recently, like you go back to Kansas and Kentucky, those were obviously close games late, and we know what happened with the turnovers at the end, but then they get some redemption against Auburn, and they are able to close that one out. And just one last point on North Carolina, they have had some times where they have been able to execute late in games. You look at their comeback victory over UCLA, they were able to execute and score late down the stretch. Same thing against Notre Dame, although they did get a little bit bailed out. Elliot Cadeau hitting a 4-point play to finish that game on the road in South Bend. And they did make a couple of baskets inside the last minute to close out the win over NC State. So they have shown the ability to score these games late. But when they've been on the opposite side and losing these close games, that's when the issues have really come trying to score the basketball inside the final 3 minutes. So I think that's an expectation of this game, regardless of the 13.5 point spread that favors Duke. The cliche is you throw the record books out the window and the records out the window when these two teams play. And that could be noted in the season that got canned because of COVID, when Duke goes on the road against a really bad North Carolina team and Trey Jones heroics, able to send it to overtime and then win it in overtime with Wendell Moore on the tip underneath the basket. And then it was even close for quite a while in the regular season finale in Cameron when Justin Robinson had that crazy second half. So even when North Carolina hasn't been great, and to a similar extent when Duke hasn't been great, they weren't necessarily all world in that COVID season of 2021. The games typically find a way to be close.
Kevin, take me when we're talking about this game for tomorrow from the Duke side of things. Obviously, focus a whole lot on Cooper Flagg and what he's going to be able to do. That's going to be at the very top of the scouting report. In your eyes, when you look at the backcourt for the Blue Devils, when you look at those guards of Sion James, Tyrese Proctor, Connelly, what are you expecting from them? What's it going to take to get the job done?
Well, it's really tough to kind of forecast this, and I'll go especially from the angle of Tyrese Proctor, not been good over the last 2 weeks. In his last 5 games, 4 games in single digits point scoring. The other one was 20 points on the road against Boston College. So he has not been good. He's going to be important in this game because of his defense, and he's going to be matched up against RJ Davis. Now, RJ Davis has not had great shooting games in the last 2 seasons when matched up against Tyrese Proctor, and Duke's going to need that more of the same from him defensively in this game because RJ Davis is one of those guards for North Carolina that can get hot and that can carry a team throughout a 40-minute game. So I think Tyrese Proctor is going to be very big for this team, especially defense, and you would certainly love for him to contribute something offensively because in a game like this where the gym is hotter, there's less air to breathe, in Cameron Indoor Stadium, you can't put everything on the shoulders of the freshman Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, and you need other guys to step up. You talk about that matchup between R.J. Davis and Tyrese Proctor. They've done it for several years. This will be the 5th year that R.J. Davis is playing in this rivalry, 3rd for Tyrese Proctor. So you would figure they know one another's games quite well, and they're going to be ready to take on that matchup and ready to lead the way for both of these squads in particular. I want to see Con Knippel really carry the way as well, and hopefully he's able to put together a really efficient day shooting the basketball. His scoring numbers have been trending back upward once again, but sometimes it's not been the most efficient of looks for Con Knippel. I think that's going to be a player that Duke's going to rely on a lot. Much like on the other end, if you look at someone like Ian Jackson for UNC, one of their star freshmen, it'll be a freshman for Duke and Con Knippel that I really want to see put the ball in the bucket efficiently.
Yeah, it's interesting. And looking at this from a defensive perspective right now for Duke, I think everyone's under the assumption that Tyrese Proctor and R.J. Davis are going to be guarding each other. Then I think you probably want Sion James, a bigger body, physical, more experienced. I would put him on the freshman Ian Jackson. He's probably going to be a first-round pick in the NBA draft, and you kind of want to be rough and tough with a rookie in a game like this. So if I was on the Duke coaching staff, if I was Jon Scheyer, I would think about putting Sion James on Ian Jackson, and then that would, I don't know if it puts me at a disadvantage, but putting Con Knippel on a player like Elliot Cadeau, who you're not really threatened from the outside on. I think he shoots under 30% from three-point range, uses more as a slasher, a driver, a facilitator for the North Carolina offense, and put Con Knippel on him. So that's kind of how I would match things up in the backcourt for Duke defensively.
Okay, and then you mentioned the front court. We talk about Cooper. We talk about Kamen Malawach and impact that he can have. North Carolina has been without Jalen Washington their last time out. We'll see whether or not he's able to go. But then Malik Brown's the big question mark for Duke. He's missed 4 or 5 games in a row here. You mentioned Jon Scheyer speaking yesterday with some reporters about, he's gone through some portions of practice, most of it non-contact. But I think the biggest thing we learned yesterday from Coach Scheyer is that he didn't rule out the possibility of Malik Brown being able to play in a game like this.
Yeah, if anything, his non-commitment to Malik Brown playing or not playing almost tends to think he is going to give it a go, especially when you saw him out there in warmups on Monday against NC State and having a full week now to practice. So I kind of tend to believe Malik Brown is going to play. Just based on watching that and listening to Jon Scheyer speak on Thursday. With Jalen Washington injured in that game against Boston College for North Carolina, as you mentioned, did not play against Pittsburgh. He actually played well against BC, had up to 18 points, and I believe that was a season high for him because, as we talked at the top of this podcast, the big men have not been good for North Carolina this year, and it was a major miss for Hubert Davis, both in the recruiting class and in the transfer portal, not trying to add any meat to this front court and front line of North Carolina. I mean, Jalen Washington is at 6'10", just over 235 pounds. But if you're being not biased and you have to pick a player for your team, Jalen Washington or Kamen Malawach, I think everyone's going to take Kamen Malawach in that
Indeed.
matchup situation. And then I know they have another freshman in Drake Powell at 6'6". I don't know if Cooper Flagg is matched up on him. I don't think you're really worried that much about that. If you're Duke, I think you're more worried about that defensively if you're North Carolina.
Sure.
Who you're going to put on him, because if Washington plays, you're not going to put the 6'10" guy on Cooper Flagg, and you're not going to put one of your smaller guards like R.J. Davis, Ian Jackson, or Elliot Cadeau on him. So as it is in every game, Cooper Flagg is the biggest X factor and the biggest mismatch that Duke has in their favor.
College Game Day will be there in the morning. We'll see the game on ESPN tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, Duke favored by 13.5, according to our friends over at FanDuel. We'll take one more time out here today, and then we'll take a look at this game over the years, what stands out, and so much more here on Locked On Blue Devils. Well, thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen today. For your second listen of the program, make sure that you check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono and Kenton Gibbs keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you enjoyed the Locked On ACC squad. Again, that is uploaded into your podcast feed each and every Thursday. A good opportunity for us ACC hosts to get together and banter about what's going on around the league. Locked On ACC on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts. Here we go. Kevin Connelly's with us from Ball Durham. We're talking Duke and UNC. I'm JJ Jackson, of course. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. And also check me out there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Kevin is at Kevin Connelly 24 and at Ball_Durham. Go follow all of those social handles. Kevin, we have seen so many great games between these two teams over the years. Unfortunately, some of the recent ones that have been the bigger ones have gone in North Carolina's favor. When you think about Mike Krzyzewski's final game inside Cameron, the Final Four matchup, and so much more. So, but nonetheless, this is a rivalry. This is a game that even people who don't have allegiances to both of these schools are going to want to watch and try and figure out what's going on.
No, certainly, JJ. And I don't know if this is necessarily breaking news, but how about we keep up with the times in live time right here on the podcast? Duke just posted a practice photo dump on their Instagram.
Yeah.
And you got to I'll see if I could do this. If you recognize that man,
there he is.
Corner of the picture, looking like he's going through some contact workouts. That's Malik Brown.
Perfect.
So, just to put a bow on our conversation talking about Malik Brown, that's any indication. I expect him to be out there tomorrow night. But as for your question on the recent series between these two teams, I think last year was definitely tough for the Duke team, especially not winning at home. I think everyone going into a season, you're hoping you split, right? You win on your home floor, and if you're able to steal one and sweep, it just adds more cherries on top. But I think it was very disappointing for this Duke team not to be able to sweep to get a win against this North Carolina team last year. But I think, again, you don't want to expect to win any game these two teams played. I think Duke fans are probably going to be feeling a little bit confident going into tomorrow's game that they have a chance to win. And given how good we think this team is in the regular season finale, can you imagine if that is the game Duke needs to try to cap off a perfect ACC regular season? And they're going into the Dean Dome in Chapel Hill, and North Carolina is still playing for its NCAA tournament lives. It should be two really exciting games this season between these two rivals.
All right, so 2024 and 2025 has obviously been in so many ways in our world the years so far of AI, of artificial intelligence and what's taken over. So I had some fun, Kevin, and what I've done earlier today, I'm going to do a lot more of this the next time around when we see the final regular season meeting between these two teams. But I went to ChatGPT and just simply said, hey, can you give me the top 20 Duke versus UNC games over the years? And of course, it's able to deliver. It's able to give me the good stuff. I find it fitting that the top 6 of the top 20 are all wins in Duke favor, which I love. So we'll just run through the top 3 here. And again, I'll save some of this.
I was going to say, I don't know if I would be able to guess this.
Yeah, it's pretty. It has a mind of its own, they say.
I was going to say, how far back are we going here?
It goes all the way back, man.
Oh,
it goes
okay.
but these top 3 are within our lifetimes.
Okay, can I guess one?
Yes.
Okay, I have to put Austin Rivers has to be up there, right?
Yes, it is. Number 1, February 8th, 2012. Duke 85, North Carolina 84. Austin Rivers hits the buzzer-beating three-pointer to pick up that 1-point victory. What a wild game that was, with Tyler Zeller tipping the ball in on Duke's basket. We had a couple of Seth Curry threes late, and then, of course, Austin Rivers wins it at the buzzer.
Now you said all these top 3 are Duke wins?
Yes.
All right, we talked about it already. I have to do it because it was another buzzer beater, Wendell Moore's game.
That is further down the list. That one you've got to go to 6.
Okay.
The number 2 game in this one was March 4th, 2001, a 95-81 win for the Blue Devils, where Duke clinches the ACC regular season title with a convincing win in Chapel Hill, led by the standout performance from Jay Williams and Shane Battier. So those two guys didn't lose to UNC often, and in that meeting, they won the ACC because of it.
Okay, and I'm gonna think I think this was against NC State, not North Carolina, because didn't JJ Redick have like 30 in an ACC championship? I can't remember if
Yep.
that was against North Carolina or North Carolina State.
Not against the Heels. This one is on the number 3 game, according to ChatGPT, February 5th, 2004. Another overtime game in Chapel Hill, where Duke edges out the Tar Heels by 2, with Chris Duhon, the famous layup, sealing the victory at the very end. So another near buzzer beater that we saw in that meeting. If you can win it towards the end, ChatGPT clearly is in your favor. I thought that was fun, how it, is thinking for itself to put some of those games together. So we'll dive into that whole list come March.
Yeah, certainly. That would be a walk down memory lane. And I think for better or for worse, depending how you want to relive the moments of each game, regardless of what side you are on the rivalry.
Because as I just said, according to ChatGPT, those 2 losses that Duke had in 2022 in the Final Four and in Coach K's final season, not in the top 6 of the best games, which is certainly interesting. But as Duke fans, we don't mind that. So we're going to have a classic tomorrow. Hopefully it's a Duke win. Again, favored by 13.5, according to our friends over at FanDuel. Kevin, you've got great coverage over at Ball Durham. Where can people find your work and support you?
So you can find us at balldurham.com. We got content already up about this game. We'll have content continuing throughout this Friday night. And obviously we'll be keeping our eyes close to College Game Day for any perhaps appearances from John Shire or any of the players. And we'll have coverage of that as well. So on social media at ball_Durham. And then, as I mentioned, balldurham.com to read all our articles.
Great to see you, Kevin. We'll talk again next week, okay?
You too, JJ. Stay well.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, and that brings us to a close. Super excited for the game tomorrow. Let's go, Duke. I'll talk to you again on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you, and good day.